Have you ever wondered why sports car insurance is so much more than your average insurance policy quote? Well, I'm from FreeAdvice.com, and we are here to get you the best quotes and for you to compare multiple quotes. So please go to our website, go to our auto insurance option, and click on compare rates, and that will launch a comparison tool that makes shopping and comparing rates super easy. It's free, it's fast, and it's delivered right to you. So back to our question, why are sports cars so expensive to insure? Well, a lot of times people jump to the assumption they must be just more dangerous. They must just be involved in all the accidents on the road. So that must be why insurance rates them so much more expensive. Well, here we have a list from TitleMax.com of the vehicles that are in the most fatal accidents in the US. And we have to scroll down pretty far on the list before we get to a sports car. So you'll notice number 22 is the Ford Mustang. Okay, so actually the vehicles that are in the most fatal accidents, we see a lot of Chevy Silverados in the Midwest, and you can look at this map yourself. So that can't be the reason. Well, with insurance, you have to understand that they assess risk not just for fatal car accidents. They have to assess the risk of replacing that vehicle in any type of accident, even a fender bender. So when we check out what State Farm has to say about this, I want to first stop and say, this is important to compare. This is why you need to go to FreeAdvice.com and use our comparison tool, because different insurance companies assess risk at different levels. So one company may be way more tolerant of the risk of you driving a sports car than another company. So don't just assume because you currently have a minivan and you want to add your sports car to that policy that your rates are going to be about the same. Compare rates. So we are just going to simply look at what State Farm, they're a high-ranking insurance company. We're just going to find out what they say about determining rates. Car insurance rates are generally determined by assessing the amount of risk being insured by that policy. So two factors with risk, they point out. Probability. This refers to the likelihood of a specific event happening based on historical data. For example, to determine the probability of a car accident, factors like your age, location, and driving behavior could be used to estimate the likelihood of being in an accident. So what does a sports car have to do with that? Well, sports cars are generally higher powered vehicles. They have more horsepower. They have better drive capabilities. So people that drive those vehicles may display riskier driving behaviors because, quite honestly, it's fun to push those sports cars to their limits. The second factor that they point out is impact. This refers to the consequences or severity of the event if it were to occur. For example, severity of a car accident could be measured in terms of property damage, personal injuries, and financial loss. And that's where we're going to really focus the bulk of our investigation today. So one survey points out that Land Rover and Porsche are the most expensive cars to maintain. And if you can scroll, they explain why. Okay. Now, obviously, insurance is not responsible for the maintenance of your vehicle, but it is not a far stretch to say that vehicles that are more expensive to maintain are also more expensive to replace or repair in the event of an accident. So once again, this is why you got to visit FreeAdvice.com. All you have to do is start by entering your zip code, and that already gives enough information to the providers that will provide you quotes to give you a basic underlying. And the more information you fill out, the more accurate your quote is going to be and the more savings you could experience, because each of those questions filters your information into different price saving categories. So it even asks for education level, service affiliation. So if you ever did service for the US military, you could qualify for savings for that. So please go to Free Advice. Use our insurance comparison tool because different companies have different risk tolerances. So On Quora, we can ask the question, why do sports cars cost more to repair than your average sedan or coupe? And the first answer is a pretty popular answer. It seems to me there are at least two factors which bear on pricing. The first one is volume. The longer the production run, the cheaper each component is in the run. So the more available the parts are. So a sports car is not the highest selling vehicle on the US market. The parts are not going to be made and produced in the same volume as the average sedan. The second is complexity. A sports car usually has more detailed lines and designs than a saloon car. This complexity adds the complexity in stamping or die. So the parts themselves are of different materials and usually higher standard of quality in the materials. They need to withstand higher speeds, higher acceleration rates, higher braking rates. And so the materials themselves are usually more expensive. And the other thing to think about that I think people forget is a paint job. A simple paint job can have such an impact on repairing a vehicle. Hail damage on a sports car with a pearlescent finish can be a whole different topic than your average straight off the manufacturer, bottom of the line minivan. So my next question in Quora was, why is auto paint so expensive? And if you scroll down to their bot answer, it actually made it really simple in a list of 7 reasons why paint can have such a range. I mean, that could make or break the quote and the amount of your claim if you have to make a claim. If you have comprehensive insurance and you are covering damage from vandalism to your vehicle, just the paint alone, and specifically premium paints or specialty paints like those used for luxury or performance vehicles. Performance vehicles are sports cars. They can command higher prices due to their reputation and specific formulations. And like I mentioned before, those pearlescent finishes, and the average person in the market for a sports car wants it to look as nice as it runs. And so sports car lines tend to invest more in appearances as far as even the quality of the paint and even the durability of the paint. And so replacing that paint in the event of hail damage, it's a different ballpark. And so hence the insurance rate hike. I also want to show you just a 2002 Chevy Monte Carlo. Seems pretty simple and standard, but even the fact that it is a 2-door can change how an insurance company views that car as a risk. So some insurance companies will rate the Monte Carlo as a sports car simply because of that coupe status, that 2-door status. So once again, have I mentioned this before? FreeAdvice.com, you can compare quotes for that Monte Carlo and you might find a drastic difference between one company to another based on how they rank the Monte Carlo, whether it's a sports car, a high performance vehicle, or not. And finally, going back to that State Farm, how they figure out their rates for their customers. If we go back to that website, it says, how the severity of car accidents, okay, property damage, personal injuries, and financial loss. And then we need to return to that idea of safety on the road. So the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety points out that driver death rates remain high among small cars. And sports cars tend to be small because they're higher power, more aerodynamic, smaller. Most sports cars are coupes, or many sports cars are coupes. So the risk is high in just damage and personal injury. So if I have to mention again, it's for your own good. FreeAdvice.com. Go through our free insurance comparison process. And then I also want to draw your attention. We do have a video. If you scroll down on our videos on our YouTube page, you will find a video about the cheapest sports car insurance. And you have got to check it out because it's a great way to just, without even starting the process, getting in the ballpark, finding out in general who gives the best rates for sports car insurance.